welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. In today's program, we are going to take up for discussion the bilateral relationship between the two nuclear-armed neighbors, Pakistan and India, the future trajectory of this particular bilateral relationship, especially after Bharatiya Janata Party has formed the government over there for a third consecutive term, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been sworn in once again for the third consecutive term as the Prime Minister of India. During the previous two tenures since 2014, when BJP came into power, then back in 2019 it came back into power, we saw, because of the nefarious designs and the policies which are of course driven by Hindutva, the bilateral relationship between Pakistan and India had to deal with many fatal blows because of these nefarious designs of Indian authorities. Now, when we talk about the recent developments after Prime Minister Narendra Modi was sworn in as the Prime Minister, there was a brief congratulatory message from Pakistan's Prime Minister Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif, which was responded to with a thanks by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Then came a statement by Indian External Affairs Minister S. J. Shankar. Will be taking the analysis on that particular statement also. What does that actually depict? Now, there is an important statement that has been made by Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar while giving a statement at the Institute of Strategic Studies in Islamabad. He has said, let me quote one of the excerpts of that important statement, that Pakistan doesn't believe in the perpetual hostility. We seek good neighborly relations with India on the basis of mutual respect, sovereign equality, and a just and a peaceful resolution of the long-standing Jammu and Kashmir dispute. He's also talked about maintaining the strategic stability in the region. He's also talked about dealing with the common challenges Pakistan, India, and the South Asian countries face in this particular region. He has also talked about the timing of this particular incoming of the government of the Bharatiya Janata Party, that it is time for a sober reflection on the future of India-Pakistan relations and the cross-cutting issues affecting the entire region. Let me quickly bring in our esteemed panel of guests who are joining us online as well as in the studio. We are honored to have been joined on the phone line by the spokesperson of the Foreign Office of Pakistan, Mumtaz Baloch. Also in the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Dr.Manzoor Afridi, Foreign Affairs expert. Dr. Afridi, thank you very much for your time. And also on Skype, we are honored to have been joined by Dr.Jamil Khan, his former ambassador. Dr. Khan, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Let me begin the discussion with you, Ms. Mumtaz Baloch. Now, when we talk about this particularly important statement made by Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, that Pakistan does not believe in perpetual hostility. We seek good neighborly relations with India on the basis of mutual respect, sovereign equality, and a just and a peaceful resolution of the long-standing Jammu and Kashmir dispute. Does Pakistan expect similar sort of a positive response from the Indian side?
The Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister spoke about the regional situation in his speech yesterday at the Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. And in that statement, he spoke about Pakistan's interest in peace and dialogue and strategic stability in South Asia. And the statement that was made by the Prime Minister yesterday, it is nothing new. It is a reiteration of what Pakistan has said in the past, that we want peace in the region, peace with all our neighbors, and we would like to have relations with all our neighbors on the basis of mutual respect, sovereign equality, and of course, with India, it is important that a just and peaceful resolution of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute should be a priority in this relationship. With regards to the current situation, the reality is that since August 2019, the regional situation has been really affected adversely because of India's illegal and unilateral actions. And that is why we believe that it is now India's turn to take steps to create the correct and enabling environment for peace, for engagement, and for dialogue so that we are able to resolve issues that affect the billions of people in this region.
Ms. Mumtaz, as we know for a fact that there was a congratulatory message on the part of Pakistan's Prime Minister Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif after Prime Minister Narendra Modi was sworn in for the third term as the Prime Minister of India. Now, that was also responded with the thanks by the Prime Minister of India. Later on, we saw the statement coming from the Minister of External Affairs of India. What does that particular statement depict? Doesn't it depict a repeated pattern on the part of Indian authorities that they are unwilling to put in their effort or play their own role as far as the resumption of the bilateral relationship between Pakistan and India is concerned?
First, regarding the exchange of messages between the leadership of Pakistan and India, this is a normal diplomatic practice that after elections, the leadership exchanges such congratulatory messages. So that was part of that diplomatic practice that the Prime Minister of Pakistan extended congratulations and felicitations to the Indian Prime Minister, who reciprocated. This exchange of messages took place on X, former Twitter. And what we have said and what we have seen is that during the election campaign in India, there were several irresponsible statements which were made by the BJP leadership and including members of the cabinet. And we hope that this kind of rhetoric would decrease and India would take steps to create an environment for peace and purposeful engagement and dialogue on all issues of concern, including the core issue of Jammu and Kashmir.
So the core issue between India and Pakistan, the Jammu and Kashmir dispute, the unilateral and illegal actions of 5th of August back in 2019, the revocation of Article 370, there's been the stance of Pakistani authorities since that particular point in time. Do we expect any sort of a change in the approach of the Indian authorities this time around? Because it was during the second tenure of Bharatiya Janata Party that the revocation took place. Do we expect any sort of a change in the approach of the Indian authorities, the Bharatiya Janata Party, its Prime Minister Narendra Modi during this third term? If not, how Pakistan is going to take? Already Pakistan supports Kashmiris diplomatically, morally and politically. How is Pakistan going to sensitize international community more about the right to self-determination of the innocent people in Kashmir?
Okay, first I must clarify that Pakistan has never accepted the jurisdiction of Indian Constitution in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So a reference to any article that you have referred to does not stand in this context, and Pakistan has always had a principled position that Jammu and Kashmir is a disputed territory under international law, and IIOJK has been occupied by India forcefully and illegally. Secondly, we hope and expect that the unilateral and illegal actions which have adversely affected the environment in South Asia would be rescinded, and we would like India to take steps to create an enabling environment for engagement and dialogue between Pakistan and India.
Right, Ms. Mumtaz, one last important question when it comes to state sponsorship of terrorism. We have seen on a number of occasions Indian involvement in state sponsorship of terrorism. We saw that very important presser by Pakistan's Foreign Secretary, also Mr. Cyrus Sajjad Qazi. How does Pakistan plan in order to sensitize the international community, and what is expected of the international community when it comes to hold India accountable for its state sponsorship of terrorism?
We have said on multiple occasions that India has been involved in terrorist activities and sponsorship of and financing of terror activities inside Pakistan. And what we have seen in recent months is that their operation of these and sponsorship of these terrorist acts has evolved and have become more sophisticated. And now India is involved in extrajudicial and extraterritorial killings, not just in Pakistan, but in other countries as well. And India's true face has now been revealed to the rest of the world. It is time that India brings an end to this state sponsorship of terrorism and these illegal extrajudicial and extraterritorial killings. And instead of becoming a rogue member of the international community, it takes steps to be a positive force in the region of South Asia.
Ms. Mumtaz Baloch, Spokesperson, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Pakistan, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. Dr. Afridi, now this particular statement, how significant it is to say that Pakistan doesn't believe in the perpetual hostility and it seeks good neighborly relations with India based on mutual respect and sovereign equality and just in a peaceful resolution of the long-standing Jammu and Kashmir dispute.
Jawad, it's an important statement amidst the tensions between India and Pakistan. And Pakistan has always strived and also always took initiative for constructive dialogue with India. So, so many dialogues have been happened between India and Pakistan, and most of the initiatives were taken by Pakistan. If we, for example, just to tell you a little bit background, if that was the Simla agreement between the two countries, and after that, during the General Zia's period, when there was, cricket diplomacy and such initiatives were taken. After that, in the 1990s, we have seen during the Nawaz Sharif and Benazir Bhutto Shahid's periods. And after that, the Agra summit, very well known, when General Pervez Musharraf, he was there in India. And even after that, so many times, and when for the first time Narendra Modi he became Prime Minister, so Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, he visited there and he was there in his ceremony, right, when he was taking the oath as Prime Minister. So now this statement from the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, Mr. Ishaq Dar, so it is very much welcoming because these two countries, these are the big and the giant countries in South Asia, and all the 8 members of the SAARC, if we see, so if these two countries, they are in peaceful condition, if they take such constructive dialogue and such mechanisms to resolve all the outstanding issues, that no doubt we can bring South Asia into a zone of prosperity. We have so many challenges in South Asia. I mean, this the India and Pakistan becoming nuclear powers and nuclear armed states, it is because of the hostility of the both nations. And the biggest problem, no doubt, that is the Kashmir. There is poverty, there is unemployment, and there is very much less people-to-people contact among the 8 countries of the SAARC. If there is the inability of the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. So if we see in many regions of the world, there is Shanghai Cooperation Organization, there is ASEAN, there is European Union, there is even African Union, there is NAFTA, and so many other organizations. They are performing very well, but very much unfortunate that here SAARC association, I mean this platform of South Asia, it is not working.
So, and that is Because of what? That is
Because of the
obstinacy.
Indian hegemony, because of the very much reluctant position of India, because what India should have played its role as the biggest country of South Asia in all terms, then no doubt this SARC could be very much vital, very much active. And let me tell you that South Asia, it is, I think, the least integrated, the least connected region of the world, and it is again because of India. So if this India welcome initiative taken by Pakistan, then of course we can overcome all these problems. And let me tell you one thing more, that we have only around about 5% intra-regional trade. So it is, I think, very much unfortunate, for all the 8 members of SARC, that why we are very much, backward in this position. Even Africa, that is faster than us. So
this is a very important point that you have just mentioned, the intra-regional trade. How is that possible when there has been a continuous approach of high-handedness and a continuous expression of nefarious design when it comes to India towards Pakistan? So how that particular regional integration, the intra-regional trade, could be boosted? I'll come back to you to take your deeper understanding about that. Let me proceed towards Ambassador Jamil Khan. Ambassador Khan, now looking at this particular statement, that Pakistan doesn't believe in perpetual hostility, as far as the foreign policy of a country having that particular relation which has nosedived, especially when we saw Bharatiya Janata Party came into power back in 2014. It nosedived even more after 2019. How significant this particular statement is at this point in time, after BJP is there for a 3rd consecutive term? And do we expect any sort of positive response from the Indian side?
Right. There are about 3-4 questions you have raised in your one question. So let's first consider 2 factors. Now, the first factor is that the geopolitical landscape is fast changing, and India cannot divide itself from those impact and effect of the geopolitical. I'll come on a little more illustration of that. Now, second factor is that 3rd time elected Modi. Now, the complexion of the BJP power is changed. The characteristic of the BJP power is changed. This time, the BJP is not as strong as it used to be. This time, the coalition government of BJP would have to have a very consideration than the rhetoric which they've been having in past, the narratives which they've been having in past. Although I don't expect them to be changing it altogether, but I expect that it would this time would be slightly more diluted than what it has been in the previous occasions. And so these are 3 factors first. And then you asked me about this time, what way India could accede to the good gesture of Pakistan. In fact, this is a stated policy. The foreign minister and the deputy prime minister, what he has stated, it is our stated policy, and we've been always very clear and very clear-headed so far as foreign policy is concerned, that we have no problem in having a dialogue. In fact, even Simla agreement enunciate all these so many points of having a mutual negotiation, mutual discussion, and resolving the problem. But it didn't resolve last several decades. So there has to be some other solution. There has to be some other influence. Now, the present day world, the bilateral dialogue should go on. The bilateral dialogue is a must. That's what the demand of the India is. And we personally feel, since I don't have any constraint of restricting my comments, because I'm a freelance, I am an analyst. A long time back, I was an ambassador, and I had certain parameters to define things. Now I can define things in a better spectrum and better canvas. So let me define that. India and Pakistan, bilateral negotiation should go on. And there is no denial of that fact. But at the same time, what question you're asking from the spokesperson of the Foreign Office, in fact, we should also develop the influence, multilateral influence on India. Have we succeeded in that? The answer is not as much, very little. So we have to really draw the mechanism. Now, the situation, the geopolitical, what I mentioned initially, and now here is the illustration. The geopolitical landscape, since it's changing, the global West is now drifting. The tilt from global West to the global East, one can see it, one can notice it. 60 countries of the world, they have started having their own currency, trade in their own currency. 29 countries have given application for BRICS. India, already a member of AIIB, the Asian Infrastructure Development Bank. So, and India already member of the SCO. So India is trying to reap the fruits from both sides, the global West as well as global East. My understanding is the way things are changing, as I said, in the global landscape. The India finally and ultimately, sooner than later, would realize that its major interest lies with the global East. And my indication is that we're talking about the trade, we're talking about the collaboration, we're talking about the cooperation. No, that is only possible if there is a peace between the two nuclear armed countries, as has been mentioned by our Deputy Prime Minister. So perpetual hostility from Indian side, this time there is a very strong opposition in India, and I don't think they would have the same intensity which we've been witnessing. So here comes another point. If the stumbling block is, and that is true, it should be, is the Jammu and Kashmir, then there has to be some solution. There has to be some way out to be found. Now, we have a very good strength. And our strength is the international law, which India has been flouting with, like Israel has been flouting it. Now, how to really make the world realize that here are the international laws, Article the Security Council Resolution 47, Security Council Resolution number 51, and there are numerous Security Council resolutions, but these were the starting two resolutions. So how to draw the focus of the world? Now that the global West is drifting towards global East, and we have two veto powers in the global East. One veto power is always with us, that is China. Russia, most of the time, they also bring their vote in our favor. So we should try and take advantage of that. We should try and bring in that factor into our foreign policy. Now, second point is United States. United States, at this point in time, what angles and what dimensions would they have to see that the India and Pakistan, they start having a slightly better relation than what they've been having? Because the United States would have their own, obviously, interest, and they would like their own foreign policy targets and the global and the goals to be achieved. And what could be that if India is able to secure its western border, which is our eastern border, and which is, of course, Pakistan is always, we have a hostile kind of attitude from Indian side, and that's why we cannot really keep quiet. So if that is done, then are they going to divert their energies towards China? So these are the very deep kind of thoughts of the diplomatic and political, global political landscape. So that are...
Ambassador Khan, I seek your pardon for the interjection over here. Your point is well taken. Already in your take, you talked about the bilateral negotiations must go on. Now, the stumbling block being the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. Now, this is a statement by Mr. Zahra. The onus remains on India to take the necessary steps to create an enabling environment for purposeful engagement and result-oriented dialogue on all issues. So it clearly, we've seen that desire on the part of Pakistani authorities that Pakistan wants to enter into negotiations for the resolution of all outstanding issues with India, but it is, the onus is on India that it should create an enabling environment. How is that doable? Can India, as you already mentioned, this time around with a little bit of size cut down in the third term, Bharatiya Janata Party, would it be more realistic to be more forthcoming towards Pakistan to create that enabling environment this time around?
Let's look at it from a different perspective. If we create a right kind of a multilateral influence, and it's not only Pakistan, there are other countries also which would like to join hands with Pakistan on this, because, and I would like to cite few documents here. One of the documents is the High Commissioner's report, Human Rights High Commissioner report, which he presented, and then now that would connect with Jammu and Kashmir and all what has been happening in Jammu and Kashmir. So that is a very volumetric kind of a report, and that contains all what we've been discussing in your shows and all other shows, and all which we've been writing about the happenings in Kashmir and the atrocities in Kashmir. So that is one document which is unilateral, which is a multilateral document, and which is a United Nations document. So that should be capitalized as a matter of fact to pressurize India. We don't say that India, and how India can do it. My understanding is that if those influence multilateral influence, while we are doing bilateral negotiation, we should not lose the sight of bilateral negotiation as has been offered by our Foreign Minister. While we are doing that, and we should do it intensely, because it's almost 5 years that what has happened and abrogation of the Article 370 and Article 35A, 5 years. So are we going to really fight for it the way we've been fighting for it? Perhaps yes, but with the way we've been fighting for it for another generation, I think now we have to intensify, and we have to see what more dimensions in the changing geopolitical landscape, what more dimensions can we add. And what I've said now, that we have to bring in the multidimensional pressure. India, because of its own compulsion now, would like that, yes, to bring the situation to an enabling environment. But Modi government, Modi administration would find it very hard. With lot of efforts, they've built this narrative, and they have really been able to sell to their constituencies what they've been doing in Jammu and Kashmir. So at this point in time, they need some face saving, and that face saving can be given. And how that face saving can be given, that the articles which they have been abrogated, that can be modified with the, of course, inclusion of people of Jammu and Kashmir, with their concurrence and consultation, and with by protecting their interests. So,
right. This is a very important point that you've just made. Let me take this particular point to Dr. Afridi also. Giving face saving to India. I mean, how is that? Is that doable, that modification to the relevant articles which have been abrogated by the Bharatiya Janata Party back in 2019? What's your understanding? Do you agree with this particular suggestion put forth by Ambassador Khan?
I do agree, because the last 10 years of the Indian policies, the internal or the external is concerned with Pakistan. If we see, so all of them, they became negative, right? Like the Citizenship Act in India passed by this Narendra Modi government, like the slogans for the reconstruction of the Hindu temple on the site of the Babri Mosque, like the abrogation or revocation of these two articles regarding the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So, and the bilateral relationship with Pakistan, every time India refused for constructive dialogue and negotiations with Pakistan. So again, it is high time for India just to rethink about its history, especially the BJP's government, particularly the last 10 years. So no doubt that we can move forward. I mean, both countries, India and Pakistan, they can move forward. And look, if we think critically, right, so why we are not doing progress? I mean, all the nations of South Asia. Why we have so many problems, as I counted before my, before this discussion. So if we have all these challenges, where is the problem? So problem, the biggest problem, that is the Kashmir. So if it is unresolved till now, we have so many casualties. We have so many, budget, I mean the money that is being spent on the defense, both India and Pakistan, and so many other problems. So let India, let Narendra Modi rethink, right, about its policies, that yes, this is the issue, And if we don't resolve this issue, if we are not willing to resolve this issue peacefully, bilaterally, or by any other mean, right, according to the wishes of the Kashmiri people, so in future we will be like this, or even, God forbid, worse than that. So it's really good suggestion.
Do you expect any sort of introspection as far as the approach of Bharatiya Janata Party and Narendra Modi is concerned? Because if they would have been serious about resolving this particular issue as per the United Nations Security Council resolutions, this particular revocation wouldn't have taken place at all back in 2019. So that was clearly the violation of India's own constitution. As already the spokesperson has said, that the Pakistan stated policy is that Pakistan considers the Jammu and Kashmir an internationally recognized disputed territory, right? So it was also the violation of the relevant UN Security Council resolutions, the similar agreement that you already talked about.
Yep.
So there couldn't be any unilateral action.
Yeah.
So where this particular bilateral relationship is going to go ahead in future, if this remains to be the stumbling block and the approach of the Bharatiya Janata Party remains same?
Look, for all the for all the problems, there is one solution, and that is the negotiation. That is the peaceful diplomacy. We have seen in the case of Afghanistan, how America and Taliban, they resolved their issue, and how America withdrew from Afghanistan, how they made the Doha agreement with Taliban. We have hundreds of examples in the history of international relations. All the wars, they ended after negotiations. So same is the case for India and Pakistan.
That is exactly what Pakistan desires.
Yeah.
Going into negotiations, resolving all outstanding issues with India through dialogue. But the onus remains with India to create that enabling environment to get into the dialogue, to talk about issues.
Yeah, now
and the multilateral pressure Ambassador Khan has already talked about. What's your understanding about that?
Now Bal is in the Indian basket, in the Indian court, right? They have to respond it positively, whether they want to have peaceful bilateral relationship with Pakistan, whether they want to have a vibrative role, very proactive role for the SARC, in South Asia, whether they want prosperity, development, peace, emancipation, regional integration, people-to-people contact in South Asia. The only thing, the biggest issue, hurdle, the stumbling block, what you say, that is the Kashmir. Let's talk about it. But what is necessary? At least a receptive gesture from the Indian side, at least to have the same kind of initiative, wholeheartedly, that let's talk on it. And it's not possible in one day, in 1 month. It's not possible even maybe in few months. These negotiations, the series of negotiations, the process, it must continue for years. Then the two nations, they may come together to resolve all the outstanding issues, and the biggest one, again, I would say, that is the Kashmir.
Here's a sharp contrast when we talk about, let's compare the statements. The statement by Pakistan's Foreign Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Zahra talks about that Pakistan doesn't believe in perpetual hostility, seeks good neighborly relations with India. Let's talk about the Kashmir dispute. The unilateral and illegal actions of August 5th, 2019 should be reversed, right? But there was a statement made by S. Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister of India. Let me quote it. With Pakistan, we would want to find a solution to the issues of year-long cross-border terrorism, unquote. Now, doesn't this particular statement depict that very repeated pattern already pretty much established on the part of the Indian authorities that shows their obstinacy, that they don't want to enter into dialogue with Pakistan on the pretext of this thing, which they have been perpetrating themselves with irrefutable evidence Pakistan has shared with the international community, as well as in the form of dossiers with the United Nations Secretary General himself?
No doubt, the Indian activities in Pakistan, the spionage,
and that very classical case of
Kulbhushan Yadav, yes, he was, and so many others have they use the Pakistan soil for the terrorist activities. So if India is on the same line repeatedly as their history, so I think then peace is very much impossible here in South Asia. We wish and India should learn from the country.
Okay, so how do you compare the tone of both of these statements by Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, very welcoming, and that particular statement by S.J. Shankar, again accusative in nature, that particular tone?
Indeed, the Pakistan's gesture, very welcoming, very much positive for the constructive dialogue, very much willing for peaceful negotiations, very much willing to resolve all the issues, right, with India and even other nations of South Asia. They are also seeing, they are watching this situation, that half Pakistan is taking initiatives, or in the case if India gave such statements, then half Pakistan responded positively. And on the other side, the Indian position, again, that obstinate behavior, again, the hegemonic, or the we can say very much the gunboat diplomacy and international relations that India always uses, right, against all its neighbors, and no doubt that the biggest, that is the Pakistan. So we wish to have that peace, and India should learn from the European countries, from the East and West Germany, and from the Poland and Russia, and so many other cases.
Let me take the analysis by Ambassador Khan regarding the comparison between these two statements by Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, and an earlier statement right after the swearing in of Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the third consecutive term by India's External Affairs Minister S.J. Shankar.
That's right. That Jay Shankar's statement is continuation of what has been happening in past during the previous regime of the Narendra Modi once the BJP was in majority. Now, my understanding is that gradually, because of the pressure of the opposition and because of the possible pressure which probably we and the other world actors would bring in, possible pressure or influence, you can say, and because of the changing environment of the global, from global west to global east, these three major factors would perhaps compel the Indian thinkers and the foreign policy makers to reconsider and think about it. But Pakistan has to give them the chance for a way out, for a way forward. And how? We have to suggest, in collaboration with the Kashmiri people, in their participation, in their interest, some amendment which is admittable and which gives them some face saving. Modi would go in the history if he accedes to some of the suggestions by his own Kashmiri people, by his own opposition, which we have to pave the ground. And those suggestions, some of it I have already mentioned. And the other one is he would go in the history and he would be a Nobel Prize perhaps if this dispute is resolved. If it's not resolved, then through nuclear power, through nuclear armed countries, the world knows what could be the devastation which could happen, if this hostility and this animosity keeps growing and keeps going on. So therefore, I think there is a realization in the world. We talked about the intra-regional trade. This is one of the things. We have to have some convergence point. I was having a meeting with a top diplomat here of China here in Pakistan, and then they were also mentioning about regional connectivity and about the regional trade. China also has a very huge differences with India, but they have about $100 billion, more than $100 billion trade with India, right? China does not have a smooth relation with the United States, but they have a very good trade relations. So we have to find a way out. We have to have a 360-degree vision. Unfortunately, that we've been attempting to, I can quote you the whole host of the international law, Geneva Convention 49, the violation of that, the violation of chapter, the Charter of United Nations, Article 33, and I can go on, the additional protocol of Geneva Convention, Article 20, and the war crime, the ICC, Article 8, all these further takes the Indian authorities and Indian government and so many key players of the Indian government to the International Criminal Court. If some at some stage or the other, once the global West transiting from global dynamics is changing from West to East, then at some point in time, all these things are going to happen. So India and Indian people, they understand it quite well that if they want to have double-digit growth, the way they are doing, and obviously Pakistan would be very happy if the entire region grow together, and that is the suggestion. That is the offer which our Deputy Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister has made. So but then making a suggestion, making a statement, and then supporting it with 360-degree vision, making efforts through all the tools available, making efforts through the traditional diplomacy, through the soft diplomacy, through the legal diplomacy, and by taking the world along, the regional players as well as the world players. Only then probably it is not an easy task. If it was that easy task, it would have been resolved in the last 70, 75 years. But then from that perspective, one has to have this multi-dimensional, multi-layered approach, and one has to do this. Consistency in diplomacy and multi-dimensional flavor in the diplomacy of today has become one of those things which definitely can yield its results. So it boils down to one point, that the converging points and giving a face saving, which their opposition is also trying. And I would assume that if the proper work is done both, through the track to diplomacy, which to my understanding is going on, and through the traditional diplomacy, then perhaps with the intervention of some very important world.
Right, giving face saving. Do I understand that giving concessions to the Indian side? Do I understand it correctly, sir?
Concession would not be the right word. Giving the leeway for them to make some amendments in consultation and concurrence without changing the whole spirit. You see, one thing which we all establish.
Your point is well taken. The point which I want to ask you to elaborate a little bit on is that there is a list of acts which Indian side has been doing. The revocation of Article 370, false flag operations, misfiring of that BrahMos also, then state sponsorship of terrorism with irrefutable evidence at the hands of Pakistani authorities shared with the United Nations. Also that very classical case of Kulbhushan Yadav, also then violation of Pakistan's territorial boundaries, that Baloch misadventure. There's a long list. You go on and on and on and on. On which act would Pakistan be giving face saving to India?
No. If we go to the history, obviously we can have a whole chart sheet. If we look at our dossier which we have submitted to the United Nations, and then again, I can go into the technicality of that dossier, that under what legal framework that dossier was submitted. There was hardly any legal framework. That was just an administrative action. The legal framework under which a complete commission report has been published, have we made best use of it? The answer is no. We have not made best use of the Human Rights Commissioner's report, which contains almost all the points which we have mentioned in a dossier. So it's just a matter of looking how do we look at it and which documents do we rely. I totally agree with you. The kind of charge sheet we can give to the India, and we can support it through the international law, whether it's the United Nations Charter, whether it's Article 49 of Geneva Convention, or Article 20 of the Geneva Convention, or Article 8 of the International Criminal Court. We can go for the first of those all international laws. But has it been implemented? Has it been made effective? So we have to then, what your question was again, let me touch upon.
Last 30 seconds, Ambassador Khan, you already talk about the converging points. Let's get a quick list from you of the converging points at this point in time between Pakistan and India, which can be capitalized upon.
SCO is one convergence point. China interest with India and China animosity with India. That's the other convergence point of the trade. Third convergence point of the trade, we are the signatory of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, India is a signatory, and under that particular multilateral document, we are bound to give some of the trade routes to all the members of the SU members.
Dr. Jamil Khan, former ambassador, joining us from Skype. Unfortunately, we are short of time. I'll have to end the show over here. I see your partner for cutting you short over here. Thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. In the studio, we were joined by Dr. Manzoor Afridi, foreign affairs expert. Thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.